I'm joined now by New York Lieutenant Governor Antonio Delgado. So, Mr. Lieutenant Governor, I know that mostly you deal with state issues, but I wonder, since you have been in Washington, if you had a reaction to the speech that Senator Schumer gave on Thursday, where he called into question the government of Israel and the commitment of the present government to a two-state solution. It sort of had a lot of blowback both in New York and in Washington. I wonder what your take on it is.
Yeah, I certainly share his concerns. I'm not going to say what the Israeli people should do as far as their elections are concerned. But what he detailed as far as Netanyahu and his concerns pertaining to the engagement in Gaza are concerning. You know, the work that I do with the Hate and Bias Prevention Unit all across the state requires me to meet with our Jewish brothers and sisters, our Muslim brothers and sisters, to hold roundtable discussions, and the pain that is ongoing right now is real. You know, a temporary ceasefire is critical. You know, I think it's important that we stop the fighting, that we do what we can, everything we can, to get hostages home and to get aid into Gaza, and for the international community to come together and chart a pathway to a peaceful resolution.
You know, I've watched you at meetings of the committee that you chair on anti-Semitism and Islamophobia hate crimes. And I wonder how much the war in Israel has exacerbated the increase in hate crimes in New York. And it's not just anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, but it really is like anti-Asian crimes, you know, crimes against gays, transsexuals, etc. I wonder how all of this is affecting your work and the increase that we're seeing in all kinds of incidents.
Hate has been normalized to a degree that is simply not sustainable for a healthy, well-functioning, civilized society. October 7th certainly exacerbated it in many respects, particularly for our Jewish community, but also for our Muslim community. And as you point out, though, even prior to October 7th, too many of our communities on the margins that are vulnerable, be it the LGBTQ+ community, be it the Asian community, have experienced hate. And that was the point of creating the Hate and Bias Prevention Unit in the first place, to be intentional, to not be on our heels and let this hate continue to be normalized, to engage with folks on the ground who are deeply committed to love and compassion and mutual understanding.
But how do you do that? I mean, there seems to be so much, I mean, almost every day there's some incident. It could be on the subway, it could be on the street, it could be somebody pushed in front of a subway because they're Asian, or somebody knifed because they're black, or somebody attacked because they're Jewish, or there's swastikas put up on buildings. How do you deal with this? It seems so pervasive now, and it doesn't seem to end.
There's two ways. One is in terms of protecting people, protecting communities, and making sure that in a very practical way we're protecting those institutions, yeshivas, mosques, synagogues, you name it, that are more vulnerable to attack with proper security grants. That's the most practical, tangible way.
So you want to give them money to do what?
To provide security, whether it's cameras, whether it's personnel on the ground, whether it's safe rooms, you name it. That's a very tangible, practical approach. But there's also something deeper. That's the intangible approach, which is leadership, and which is creating a culture where we as a collective get back to being able to treat each other and see each other as human beings. The Hate and Bias Prevention Unit is a part of that. My work in terms of the Office of Service and Civic Engagement is also a part of that, creating intentional opportunities for people to find themselves through service and to see themselves in others through service. One other critical piece to this puzzle.
But so, you know, you talk about leadership.
Yes.
But the question is it good enough to get up and say, hate, bad? You know, I think...
Of course it's good enough.
I mean, because
what
it doesn't seem to stop. I mean, I'm on the streets of New York a lot, and I can see it. I watch it. I see it. We see it almost every day in incidents that astonish us.
Yeah.
And I wonder, you know, is there something more? I mean, is it something that the churches have to do? Is it something the synagogues and the mosques have to do?
I super appreciate the question. It's a big picture. It's a cultural issue. You talk about social media. You talk about the way we receive information now and how it's siloed in the echo chambers of manipulation. A lot of demagogues out there right now that want to manipulate people's fears and anxieties. There's a growing sense of intolerance because of that, and ignorance that gets breeded, and from that you have hate and you have violence. Leadership has to matter. How we connect with the people has to matter. The spaces that we create for people to listen to each other before rushing to judgment, all these things have to matter. We cannot divorce leadership from this question. And what we've got to now is a point where we have too many folks out there who are not real leaders at all, who are morally bankrupt, who are doing what they can to harm our connective tissue as human beings.
So how do we stop these morally bankrupt people from getting their messages out because social media is so easily accessible?
Well, I think it starts with making sure that we engage the public in a meaningful way, help them understand that our democracy actually matters and that we can deliver for them. I think there's a growing cynicism, unfortunately, that our system of government is no longer really working for everyday folks. And people by design, therefore, check out and create a vacuum. And then that vacuum gets filled by bad actors. So the way around that is not to tell people, please show up and vote for a system that you already feel detached from. The way around that is to make sure that we engage with those people in real ways, actually get good people on the ground to serve and deliver meaningful change for them and help them appreciate that democracy can actually work for them in the long run.
Does it also mean that there has to be some rules governing what gets onto social media?
I think how we moderate content and filter content is of most importance for sure. Free speech is certainly a critical and fundamental right, but we have to take care to figure out what our children in particular are being exposed to, and these algorithms that are meant to be addictive by design are deeply problematic.
Well, you know, I had a conversation with the New York City Health Commissioner just last week, and he said that people under 14 shouldn't get cell phones.
In my household,
yeah, tell me about how it works in your household.
I can tell you that's what we do. You know, I think it's important that we do what we can to protect our children. And obviously, everybody, as a parent, I can appreciate that people have different ways of going about parenting. But there's also a way in which we have a responsibility as a society and as leaders to figure out how to protect our children from being inundated with information that is not at all helpful or beneficial to their development and well-being.
So how do you get the social media to go along with you and to try to self-police the hatred that shows up?
Well, we do this through legislation, right? We do this through engagement with our people, the people on the ground. Again, getting to a place where people are engaging in a meaningful way in our society, in our democracy, elevating these issues in a way that allows us to act legislatively in an informed way, in a thoughtful way, in a way that balances out all of our priorities from free speech to protecting our children against harm. All that is critical, but here's the key to bring it back to the hate and the divisiveness. How do we have these constructive conversations and bring about meaningful change if the foundation upon which we have these conversations is broken?
Okay, on that note, we're going to have to leave it there for now, and we'll have another conversation about it, but we'll be right back.